Evening, probably technically the afternoon for those of you back on the West Coast. I'm flying back to San Francisco on Tuesday. That's going to be good because the 49ers local pro day where they host a lot of the locally based or locally sourced prospects. Jake Hayner is going to be there amongst many. It's going to be a talented show that's going to be at Levi's Stadium on Wednesday, April 12th. So draft season is here. As part of draft season during the NFL owners meetings the other week. I had a one-on-one with John Lynch, and we talk about the 49ers secret sauce. Well, I got to write about it in depth because John was great in our interview about the 49ers comp pick formula. There it is, how 49ers GM John Lynch uses the comp pick formula to reload for the NFL draft. So we're going to sit down, we're going to learn a lot about how the 49ers operate, how they've managed to build a really strong roster and a really sustainable one at that. Because you look at a cautionary tale, for example, the Rams this year. Yes, they did win the Super Bowl here in 2021, but they're not going to be winning a Super Bowl here this next season. I could put some money on that right now. In fact, I should have when I was in Vegas because they had to cut some of their best players. They were not cap sustainable. They pushed all the chips into the basket of that 2021 season. And unfortunately for them, that did not prove to be something that could be salary cap compliant here in 2023. The 49ers are trying to extend their window as long as possible. And they believe they have a formula if they continue drafting well with mid to late round picks that can do so. The NFL is obviously a hard capped league. That means you can only spend a certain amount of money on your players' salaries every single season. Now, there are ways to rearrange the deck chairs so you can get under the cap, but only to a certain extent. At some point, the bill's going to come due. At some point, you've restructured enough contracts or your ownership doesn't have any more spending desire to be able to fit contracts under the books by giving out big bonuses. At some point, you're going to hit that limit and you're not going to be able to go over it. The 49ers want to stay under that limit. What exactly that limit is not an exact number. It's hard to forecast because the cap changes every year. In general, it rises. We've only seen one decrease in the salary cap. It's tied to league revenues, and that decrease came due to the economic downturn in 2020. So what the 49ers are doing is they're banking on a rising salary cap to fit more and more A-list expenses. They have a growing core of A-list players. And within that comes the compensatory formula, and we're going to talk about that on this show today. So if you haven't seen this article yet, it came out 2 days ago. Yeah, or no, did it come out Thursday morning? So almost 2 days ago. It came out yesterday morning. It is now later on Friday. If you haven't seen this piece yet, I'm going to copy and paste the link, and I'm going to put it in the chat section. Those of you who have already seen the description might have already clicked on the link, but it's now going into that chat section. There you go. And I am going to also say that you can sign up for that for $1 a month on The Athletic. And this is one-on-one with John Lynch about the 49ers process. And I think right now, I think the rest of the league will tell you they are ahead of the rest of the league as far as the roster building process goes. They're doing stuff like the Ravens under Ozzie Newsome have done now for a couple decades, like the Patriots under Bill Belichick did throughout their dynastic years. They're finding a way to keep high-level success sustainable. And they're doing it through the compensatory pick formula. First thing, I talk about key one right here, building compensatory capital. Well, take a look at how much compensatory draft capital the 49ers do have. And this is going to tie in with the salary cap, and I'll explain how over the course of this show. But comp picks you get when you let free agents walk. So you have veteran players who sign for more money elsewhere. When they leave, the league will give you anywhere between a third and a seventh round compensatory pick, depending on how that departure fits into the formula. The 49ers were terrible when Lynch and Shanahan took over. So in 2017, they only had one comp pick. That was from Alex Boone, leaving after the 2016 season. He wasn't part of this regime. They're, when we talk about a terrible team, well, look at this. 0 comp picks in 2018. It's because the roster was barren at that point. Comp picks start trickling in 2019. There's 3. 2020, only 1. 2021, only 1. But look what has happened recently. In 2022, 4 comp picks for the 49ers. In 2023, 7 comp picks for the 49ers. That's in this coming draft. And in 2024, they are projected to have 5 comp picks. That obviously isn't an official number yet. But 4 plus 7 plus 5, that is 16 compensatory draft picks. That's 16 draft picks that the 49ers are scheduled to tack on to their normally allotted total over the course of this 3-year stretch. And if the machine keeps on churning out comp picks, that will continue. That insanely high rate, which is the top in the NFL, will continue beyond the year 2024 and beyond. And what this is doing is you have to understand, draft picks are cost controlled. Draft picks in George Kittle, for example, 5th-round draft pick in 2017, his rookie deal, he cost less than $1 million per year. So in a salary cap league, if you get George Kittle-like production for less than $1 million per year, you can see how that's tremendously efficient. If other teams are paying $15 million per year for something similar or something worse because you overpay in free agency. Obviously, George Kittle is not as cheap as he was back then. He signed a record deal for tight ends. Deebo Samuel is not as cheap as he was on his rookie contract. He signed a mega deal last offseason. The 49ers have also rewarded Fred Warner with big money, Eric Armstead with big money. I mean, there are a lot of players who they are paying. However, with the salary cap rising every single season, they can afford to pay these players, but they have to pick which A-list players they want to pay, and they have to pick correctly. And so far, a lot of the players that have these A-list deals, they've performed as A-list players for the 49ers. I would, in fact, say all of them have. Eric Armstead was hurt for a lot of last season, and it was his least productive year. But in 2021, Eric Armstead absolutely played up to the level of that contract. The impact that he had on the inside helped the 49ers in a way that transcends what the standard player would be able to do. The 49ers, when free agency happens, to build draft compensatory capital, have to decide which players are expendable, right? And, you know, on my Twitter a couple weeks ago, I had the formula, and this would be a good formula to put up to help make sense of some of this stuff. So let me open this, if I could find my page. It's pinned up at the top of, what is my Twitter? Lombardi himself? Yeah, I have to put the link in there. It's pinned up at the top of the page because this formula is what the 49ers have ridden to great success as far as building the roster over the past few years. Okay, we got that. It's up on the screen in 3, 2, and 1. There we go. So the 49ers building strategy: acquire and develop A-list players. That sounds simple enough. Obviously, not something to be taken for granted. So you acquire them through the draft. You acquire them through free agency. They assign Javon Hargrave. They consider him to be an A-list player worth paying. Obviously, they've drafted a lot of good players. We'll talk a little bit about that at a later time in this video. Number 2, pay those A-list players. That list can grow as the salary cap does. Number 3, don't pay B-listers when free agency comes, because you can obtain compensatory picks through departures instead. You can rack up these draft picks instead. So that's the key. Key number 3 right here is what you must absolutely follow. Don't pay the B-listers when free agency comes. And that involves differentiating between who's an A-lister and who's a B-lister. That is the call that you have to make if you're John Lynch, if you're Kyle Shanahan, if you're the talent department for the 49ers. You have to determine who to pay and who not to pay. If somebody is good but not great, you don't pay him. Mike McGlinchey, they let him go. $87.5 million from Denver. It's a lot of money. He was considered a good tackle. The 49ers think, though, he's going to be replaceable, at least at a cost-efficient basis, and they're going to get a third-round comp pick in place of Mike McGlinchey in all likelihood next year. So this formula right here, 2024, 5 comp picks. One of those is going to come thanks to the departure of Mike McGlinchey. Charles Omenihu, good player, not a great player. Sansom Ebukam, good player, not a great player. That's what the 49ers are racking up comp picks in 2024. You can get up to 4 comp picks per player in player departures per season. That's where it caps out. You can get up to 3 per season due to the NFL minority hiring rule. So if a minority is hired and promoted, so one of your coaches, one of your assistant coaches gets a promotion, or one of your executives gets a promotion to general manager, the coach promotion is to head coach, then you could pick up 2 third-round draft picks, and you max out at 3 per year. So the only way that the 49ers led the NFL with 7 compensatory picks in this award process for 2023, they've gone from only 2 of their original picks after trading so much for Christian McCaffrey and Trey Lance to 11 because they picked up 1 for Jeff Wilson and 1 for Jonas Griffith, plus 7. So 4 plus 7 is 11. The way that the 49ers have 11 draft picks this year, despite sending a ton of capital away for some premium pickups, is because they have maxed out both compensatory formulas. 4 for the players and 3 due to the minority hiring incentive. So the 49ers have mastered this system. And the player, they weren't doing the player comp pick thing until recently because it took them a while to build the roster to what it is now. So the 49ers have to build compensatory capital. That's key 1. They've done it through 2 avenues. Key 2, as we get this back up on the screen for you, here's the article, here's the interview with John Lynch. Key 2 is to have the discipline to sustain the A-list core, and it's connected to key 1. You let Charles Omenihu walk. You say, hey, Drake Jackson's got to step up. One of our draft picks has to step up. We'll make other small signings. Austin Bryant, for example. Cleveland Farrell, for example. We'll make other small signings that can hopefully help pick up the slack. So you do those things to build compensatory capital, but you also do those things out of discipline because you want to maintain the A-list core. The only way that you can continue paying Deebo Samuel, that you can continue paying Fred Warner, that George Kittle, maybe Brandon Ayuk in the future, obviously Nick Bosa this offseason. The only way that you do that is if you keep costs in line right now. And the only way to keep costs in line right now is to not pay somebody like Charles Omenihu $8 million a year. Sensa Mebucom making about the same amount of money. That's not a cost-efficient contract for the 49ers. Other teams overpaying for those players. They're not giving elite production. They're good players, but they're getting paid a little bit more than good players because free agency is expensive. So the 49ers say, hey, we got to make those numbers up. We have to make up for that production on rookie deals or inexpensive veteran signings. So it takes some discipline to do that. You know what? And it actually also takes some coaching prowess to do that. Probably a lot of it. Chris Kasarik is a great example. He could take these guys like Arden Key from the Raiders, did nothing for 3 years, and turn him into somebody who makes over $6 million a year with Jacksonville. And I think Arden Key's up to $9 or $10 million with his latest contract. So you have a factory of sorts if you're the 49ers. The coaching staff, the input is the players, right? The 49ers get players on the cheap through draft picks and through lower level veteran signings. The coaching staff is the factory. They work on those players. And then the output is that player making a lot of money elsewhere. And if that player does sign for a lot of money elsewhere, the 49ers regain an input, or at least a means of input, and that is a compensatory draft pick. It's a circular process. I should make a little diagram, right, that has those arrows going in a circle. That is the 49ers' secret sauce. Now, this doesn't work unless they make draft capital count. Okay? So you get the comp picks, you get this in return for all your efforts. You've got 7 this year. You had 4 last year. You have 5 potentially in 2024. But unless you pick well with these selections, this whole process is going to stall out. Unless the 49ers picked well in the past, the whole process wouldn't have reached this point. So when we talk about making draft capital count, here's some examples. Brock Purdy was actually a compensatory pick. The 49ers did not re-sign quarterback C.J. Beathard after the 2020 season. Beathard signed with Jacksonville for $2.5 million. That was enough to factor into the compensatory formula. So the 49ers in 2022, as you can see here, thanks to the departure of C.J. Beathard, signing with Jacksonville for $2.5 million, had 4 instead of 3 compensatory picks. That very last comp pick was also the very last pick of the draft, number 262. The 49ers picked Brock Purdy with it. Now they have insane value with Brock Purdy because he's on a rookie contract that's the cheapest contract of the whole draft, because the draft, contracts decrease in value throughout the entire process. So pick number 262, dead last, is the cheapest of all 262 picks. The 49ers have Brock Purdy under team control for 4 years at the cheapest possible price. And that is wild value considering that he was one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL last season. So that's an example of picking well with a comp pick in, obviously, the later rounds. Another example of picking well with a comp pick, Talanoa Hufanga, 5th rounder, because the 49ers let Emmanuel Sanders walk after the 2020 season. Sanders signed with the New Orleans Saints. 49ers got a 5th rounder, and it was a clean swap for Talanoa Hufanga, all-pro in his 2nd season. Another prominent comp pick for the 49ers was Dre Greenlaw. Dre Greenlaw came aboard in the 5th round in 2019. So that was early in the compensatory success formula for the 49ers. The Greenlaw situation happened because Aaron Lynch left the 49ers, and that gave them a 6th round pick. That 6th round pick, the 49ers traded to Denver, along with, I believe, Dakota Watson for a 5th round pick. That was an edge rusher that they no longer needed at the time around then. I think it was 2018 or 2019. That 5th round pick turned into Dre Greenlaw. So you can see how the 49ers creatively maneuvered in that situation, and they brought in another player who they've developed really well. Johnny Holland, excellent linebackers coach, has done a good job developing Dre Greenlaw into a star for the 49ers at that linebacker position. So you make the draft capital count, and when you do make the draft capital count, you load yourself up with good players. When you load yourself up with good players, they get paid when they hit free agency. Then you get more comp picks. And when you have a ton of comp picks, like the 49ers this year have 7 of them, when you could say, hey, we're going to have 11 draft picks coming up here, you can afford to splurge on a proven commodity during the season, such as Christian McCaffrey. Listen to this. I talked to the 49ers people, Jed York, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan at the owners' meetings last week. They weren't even looking for a running back last year, halfway through. But they had the luxury of being able to get Christian McCaffrey. It doesn't matter if you're not looking for a running back. If Christian McCaffrey is available and you can acquire him, especially if the Rams might be competing with you for him, you go out and do it because he's Christian McCaffrey. He's one of the best players in the game, the most versatile player in the game offensively, right? So you go and do it. And the 49ers did it, and it paid off. And now they have Christian McCaffrey on an affordable contract. They have another A-lister, right? You want to build that A-list core? Well, add Christian McCaffrey into it. So the 49ers could afford to pick Christian McCaffrey at a price of a 2nd-round pick, a 3rd-round pick, a 4th-round pick, and a 5th-round pick because they knew that they had all of these comp picks, 4 comp picks through players coming in. So they've spent all this on Christian McCaffrey. They spent a ton on Trey Lance. They took a big swing there, too. We'll see how that one goes. That cost them a lot of 1st-round draft capital, right? But even though they spent all that capital, they have replenished a lot of capital moving forward. Now, obviously, because they did spend some 1st-round picks on Trey Lance and also because they spent some earlier picks on Christian McCaffrey, the 49ers draft capital isn't quite as valuable as the original stash had been. This is the draft capital sorted by points. As you can see in this column right here, a lot of 1st-round picks will give you a higher total of points. The 49ers don't pick until late in the 3rd round, and that means a lower total of points. And according to Graham Barfield's chart, the 49ers, even with their 11 picks, have the least draft capital out of any NFL team this season. But I think that's fitting because the 49ers have made their hay picking in the mid to later rounds. Again, George Kittle, 5th rounder. Dre Greenlaw, 5th rounder. Talanoa Hufanga, 5th rounder. Brock Purdy, the last pick of the whole damn draft. The 49ers are really, really good at picking in the mid to late rounds because their scouting department works really well with the coaching staff. Everybody really is on the same page. And as I'm going to illustrate here in a few minutes, the salary cap people are also on the very same page as the coaching staff and the scouting department. They're all meetings together, and that's what makes this whole intricate comp pick salary cap process work for the 49ers. So since they're good at that, they're confident that they can make draft capital count, and they're confident that they could, again, defy this chart. Least draft capital due to points, but the 49ers, if they can pick correctly and develop players well, maybe their draft class ends up better than some of the teams up here in the green who technically have more draft capital when it comes to points. Organizational collaboration is the formula. The coaching staff needs to be plugged in with the scouting department. So the scouting department knows exactly who to target for the coaching staff in the draft. The precision is all the more important when you don't have pick number one or pick somewhere in the first round. If you're not picking there, you better surgically strike this. You better have that precision later in the draft. And the 49ers believe they have that. Now, back to the article that I wrote, because we're talking about the comp pick process and how that keeps the 49ers under the salary cap. We talk about organizational collaboration. We can't forget about the 49ers salary cap personnel. Parag Marathe is obviously the top of the list. Everybody talks about him all the time. I think he gets a lot of credit for the 49ers' success with the salary cap. But he's got guys that are doing a lot of calculations with him. Brian Hampton and Jeff Diamond, who's the salary cap manager for the 49ers. And John Lynch mentioned all of these names when we were discussing the 49ers strategy last week, and they absolutely deserve a lot of credit. See, the 49ers, you don't know what the salary cap is going to be in future years. You don't know what unexpected expenditures are going to come up. So you have to crunch the numbers to the best of your ability and figure out just how much money you are willing to offer players when free agency comes. And, a lot of obviously paying A-list players, that's going to be in the biggest of spotlights, right? How much is Nick Bosa going to make? I'll talk about that a lot next week. That's the next thing I'm going to zero in on. What might Nick Bosa's contract look like? These guys, Marathe, Brian Hampton, Jeff Diamond, they're in charge of determining what the 49ers can pay without rolling up too much salary cap debt so they don't turn into the Rams, right? They have to determine those numbers without a clear endpoint in the future because nobody's really sure where NFL revenues and the salary cap will be. It's a hard job, but they're trying to keep the 49ers as financially flexible as possible. For the A-listers, well, when they're determining big contracts, negotiating big deals, that's going to be a high-profile kind of thing. But it's the stuff that goes on behind the scenes that's just as important. The 49ers need to determine when they do have B-list, C-list players, good players, if they can get them back on good deals, of course they're going to do that. If they're going to get them back on cost-efficient deals, fine. You take it, you maintain continuity in your system. Good examples, DJ Jones, 4-year qualifying player offer. They got him for near a salary cap minimum hit in 2021. Wasn't as easy in 2022. Denver offered DJ Jones $10 million per year, and the 49ers let him walk. So somewhere in between 1 and 10 million, there was a number that the 49ers weren't willing to cross for DJ Jones. Somewhere below Laken Tomlinson's $13 million per year with the Jets, there was a number the 49ers weren't willing to cross for Laken Tomlinson. Somewhere under Mike McGlinchey's $17 million per year, there was a number the 49ers weren't willing to cross for McGlinchey, for Sansom Ebukam, for Charles Omenihu. They let a lot of free agents walk this offseason. The men who determine what the number is, their names are on the bottom of the screen below. Marathe, Hampton, and Diamond. You make the best possible calculations. You determine what threshold you're willing to pay somebody. And if you cross that threshold, you say, all right, we have the discipline, we have the fortitude to let him go. We can get a comp pick in return. It is a complex formula, but the 49ers appear to be riding the wave really well. And you know what? This 49ers cap personnel, I say that organizational collaboration is the formula. John Lynch told me that these guys sit in on the 49ers scout meetings and on the 49ers coaching meetings in the offseason when they, kind of bring the whole brain trust together, determine how to build this team. The cap guys are in on the meetings. So this is the sign of a healthy organization because you have even the financial people collaborating with the personnel people. So then the financial people understand what the deal is. How important is this player? Well, okay, they're going to know the financial threshold that's necessary. It's part analytics, part film study, but mainly it's teamwork in the front office. And that's how the 49ers are able to ride the formula the way that they do. Anyway, that's the gist of how the 49ers are operating. They're reloading every year. They have $3 million of salary cap space right now. It's not a lot, but their draft class is really inexpensive. It's only going to cost about $1 million. Fit that under there, and they could keep on churning with a really good roster, especially if players keep on performing and earning money from elsewhere, because that gives the 49ers more comp picks. They have more than any other team in the NFL. All right, going to open this up to a 49ers Q&A. Everybody check out the article. It is down in the chat section for you. I could put it in there one more time as I do head over to check out some of your questions. Right now, it is a $1 a month for the Athletics. So do check that out. It's also in the description. Very worth it. One-on-one with John Lynch. That's something you need to see, right? So go ahead and check that out. And I am going to go to 49ers Q&A and see what everybody's up to. Hope everybody's doing well on this Friday evening. Dinner coming up here in Nashville. Going to be a good one. Going to a place called Noko. Some Asian fusion. I think we were already there a few weeks ago, but some friends. Oh, my buddy Keith, who's a big 49ers fan. He's going to be there. Keith and his fiance, Sarah, actually saw part of a playoff game with them this year. Walked down, hung out with them over at Levi's Stadium. So we got 49ers people, or fans, I guess I should say, here in Nashville. You know, I was at an acai bowl place here in Nashville today, and a guy in a 49ers hat took my order, and we started talking, and I said, "Are you from the Bay Area, or what's the deal?" He's from Tennessee, and he said that his dad loved Ronnie Lott. These are Nashville natives, long history here in Tennessee. Ronnie Lott fan, his dad, and his son is a big Niners fan, and he's wearing a Niners hat, and he's working the counter here over in Nashville, over in the Wedgwood, Houston neighborhood. So, I just think it's cool how sports bring people together. Yes, there are a lot of 49ers fans everywhere, including here in Tennessee. Yep, George Kittle, he is out here. I have seen him out here, Nashville. Oh my gosh, the link shows $2 a month. I'm sorry. Is that going to break the bank? I didn't know that it increased to $2 a month, but still think it's worth it. It's an exclusive interview with John Lynch about how the 49ers have that advanced roster in football. If Kinlaw leaves, the 49ers get a comp. It depends on how much he's paid, right? If Kinlaw has a big season and he gets paid by somebody else next year, it could really factor in well for the 49ers compensatory formula. Not if he leaves now, though. Kinlaw would have to leave after his contract is up, and there still is one more season. He did recognize me. I didn't say he didn't. The guy at the counter recognized me. We were talking about the Niners, so I started asking him questions, and he said that he was here from Tennessee. Elkhart, Indiana. Joined when the 49ers drafted Joe Montana. That's pretty cool. What is your 49ers fandom story? I'm interested to hear this. Franchise has a lot of history. You could drop it in the comment section. I'm glad that Jason thought that we just went over some inspiring finances. I try to make it as digestible as possible when we talk about the 49ers cap situation and the comp pick situation. It all goes hand in hand because draft picks are so much cheaper than paying somebody in free agency. Where do I see myself in 2 years? I don't know. I'm just taking it day by day, man. Doing my best. Hopefully educating people as much as possible about some of the nuances of football and the business side of the game, and just having fun watching good quality football. The 49ers are playing it right now, and the NFL obviously has the best players in the world. Hawaii, Japan, Seattle. That's been your path of 49ers fandom? Happy Easter to everyone. Eric Gomes, good guy. Thanks, Eric. All right, any questions? Let's go. 49ers Q&A. That's what this is all about. Tack that up onto the screen. Yeah, if you have some good questions, put them out there. If not, I'm going to sign off here and start doing more draft prospect videos on the channel today. I just went through Cameron Latu video, Alabama tight end, one of the 49ers 30 visits. These are all with tape breakdowns. We'll go to Yaya Diaby, the edge rusher, another 30 visit, really athletic edge rusher. That's the one I'm going to record next. I'm glad that you like the travel aspects of my shows. Maybe get you some food tonight. Show that on the screen. That's always fun. Next week we're moving again. We'll be in the Bay Area and we'll be in Austin, Texas next week. So should be a fun few days for the show, moving around the country a little bit. Then back to Nashville Though, yeah, then we're going down to the coast, like the Gulf Coast. That's going to be fun. Yeah, the next couple weeks are going to be really good as far as location content. So we'll talk the 49ers in that period. 30 for 30 is a play on the ESPN 30 for 30 series. But the 30 visits, the 49ers have 30, they can invite rookie prospects. They can invite up to 30 of them to visit the facility officially. So far, we have like 4 or 5 that we know of. The 49ers have invited and making videos on all those guys. I mean, Lance was with Mahomes in Texas earlier this week. I don't know if that's still going on. What a great opportunity for Trey Lance, though, just to see how Patrick Mahomes operates in the offseason. I didn't get to see any of Josh Allen's games in Central California, but I have swung by his high school, Fireball High School, and that was really cool. Got to talk to his high school coach, see where he played, see the retired jersey. The high school gym at Fireball High School, it's a tiny town, rural farm town in the Central Valley in California. Josh Allen's high school gym is named after his grandfather. It's pretty cool, right? So it gives you an idea of the size of the place that we are dealing with. I think that Nick Bosa's new contract is probably not going to hit until closer to training camp. Deadline pressure is going to be something that spurs that. He's going to want a lot of money. He deserves a lot of money. The 49ers want to keep this as cost efficient as possible because they are trying to build a sustainable team. So you just have to look at it that way. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. It's been a great Friday evening. Hopefully you enjoyed our little trip through the 49ers front office. Inside the 49ers comp pick master with John Lynch. Article, once again, up on the screen. Check it out. It is in the description. I guess it's $2 a month, $1 or $2 a month, whatever it is. Support the cause. Subscribe. Check it out. It'll be there. More draft content now coming soon. Going to go record another video right as soon as I hit end broadcast on this one. Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you very shortly. Bye now.